As we're live, let's get our Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to get going. We got our spinning wheels coming on now. 1 and 2. Welcome in. Yep. Once everybody's in, we got to have our coffee sip. Brought to you by Lion Coffee. Patrick, good morning to everybody. And it is Thursday. Welcome in March 2nd. We are flying right along, and free agency's right around the corner, and the combine is really the media part of the combine is essentially over, but the testing and drills is here. So fun time. Scott, how you doing? Welcome to the last show of the week for us.
Yeah, it's looking forward to the weekend. Kind of kick back. Will lead us into the combine drills and everything, and then we get to absorb it all, and then we'll be back on Monday to talk about all of it.
Yeah, I typically go in a lot on the weekends in the wintertime because it's wet and dark here, and why not get a bunch done that then I can take a little bit more time to frolic amongst the woods and the meadows in the summertime. So no issues with that. A really nice little perk of my job. So I'll be in the office today, but no doubt in front of my computer, playing the drills on one video as well. So let's say hello to some people in here. If you guys got any questions about the Broncos or the combine, or life in general, favorite trails in Washington, stuff like that. Scott's got motorcycle insight. We're here for you. So let's say Jeremy, Sean, good morning, boys. How much legitimacy do you really give these NFLPA grades? I mean, it's a poll, right? They're not necessarily grades. It's a poll. So I would say it's legitimate in the fact that the players voted on this, and a lot of them didn't like some of these things. There could things that made them not much. Am I typing out here?
Yeah, Nick, you're freezing up a little bit. Jeremy, the way I kind of see it is almost like the players voting for each other for All-Star games. Some of it's based on reputation, some of it's based on name recognition, and some of it's legitimate. So I do put some legitimacy in it, in that it is a players association. The votes and the polls and stuff are on the players. How big a sample size is it? I don't know. You could get my wife had a beer dumped on her, so we gave them an F. That kind of happens. Or this place has a better playground for children. Well, is that what we're there for? Maybe. So I do put some legitimacy into it. It's not the holy grail by any stretch of the imagination. And why don't you let us know a little bit about, what are we talking about here? If you just happen to click on and didn't read the topic, Nick, what grades, what NFLPA grades are we talking about here? Nick's frozen up on me just a little bit, so maybe I need to boot him here. And, I'll say hello to some folks in the chat here. He was just bragging about how well his internet was working. You know what I'm going to brag about? I'm going to brag about Philip Hogginson coming in saying, good morning, guys, on with the super coming in blue. Good morning to you as well. Michael Ranquillo has been showing the support all through the year, and he is doing so again with some nice stars. Philip and Michael getting us started on stars this morning. And this one, Colton, I thought we were like a minute late or so, and he was giving the countdown. I'm like, dude, we're here. What's the problem? But he was saying, he's giving the countdown, says delay of game. I'm getting PTSD flashbacks already. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever been in anything other than basketball where they were counting down the play clock, and you see that happen a lot, Nick, in basketball, where they're counting down the shot clock for people. That's helpful. You don't necessarily see that on the play clock when you actually want to start running plays.
Yeah, no doubt. Getting real ticked off about my internet. I'm going to have to figure something out here. But the grades, I would say, are legitimate because they are just a pull from the individual players. So if you take the player's word for it, then yes, they're legitimate. And it's more so great about the facilities and services provided to the players by the organization. So what are the categories that are provided here? Treatment of families, food service, nutrition, weight room, strength coaches, training room, training staff, locker room, and team travel. So those are the areas that they are grading. And I think these are legitimate. It's kind of like how you see it's not a true bell curve where you see F's and D's as well. Like the lowest grades are like C's and some D's. It's not like half F's and half A's. But no, I do think they are legitimate.
And Nick, you know where that matters? Free agency.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that stuff kind of matters when you're thinking, all right, this team is 8-9. This team's 8-9. This one's offering me $2 million. This one's offering me $2 million. Everything else is kind of the same. All right, well, what about these things? These guys have a better reputation of taking care of their players' health. The family. I called up my boy that we played with in college. He played there 2 years ago. He says, your wife and kids are going to love it. Those kind of stuff, it does matter. It can make a difference. And then, some of it for me is fan experience as well, Nick.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think the top 4 teams, so how much does this matter? This is, really small sample size here, but I believe the top 4 graded teams overall, ranked teams overall, all made the playoffs this year. The Dolphins, the Cowboys, the Vikings, and somebody else also made it. So it does matter some, and it's kind of ironic, and Chad talks about it in his article. You guys can find it at Mile High Huddle, where the Broncos graded the highest was the area that received a lot of vitriol from the fan base. Broncos get a B+ in weight room and an A- in strength coaches. They also get a B+ in team travel, but those are their highest grades.
I want to share a video real quick because what this boils down to, and Sean Payton talked with it a lot about it a lot. What this boils down to is culture. When we're talking about, building from the top, how everybody's bought in and that type of thing. And Sean Payton was asked about it, about how do you establish the culture of winning in that type of thing. And this is what he had to say.
Building a culture. I think, all right. So beyond people, it's every detail, every little thing matters. In almost an obsessive way that, because all of those details matter inside the framework of the field. And we obsess as coaches and teachers on doing the little things well, but that has to exist in every other area of your building, and in your equipment room, in your training room, in your cafeteria, just and pretty soon then, the building all moves in a direction kind of in concert, and that's pretty cool when that happens.
So to me, that's kind of what he's talking about. These grades, it comes down to every little detail, everything. It's a, Nick just said, the top 4 teams all made the playoffs. It's a winning culture. It's a winning mentality. It permeates the entire building. And there's 53 guys on an active roster. There's probably 300 people working daily, in and around Dove Valley. And it matters. Through osmosis, the winning culture and the class culture matters. So, some of it, yes, it does.
Yeah, it does matter. And the culture in here is pretty good. We got Philip coming in saying, good morning, guys. The $2 super chat. Good to see you, Philip. Hope you're doing well. We really appreciate you. Also, our guy, Gary Palmer, coming in, $4.99, saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. We appreciate you guys. The super chat's coming in and saying hello. Also appreciate Patrick coming in and saying aloha. Aloha to you, Patrick. Keith Brugman's in the house. We got Michael Ronquillo's in the house. All the familiar faces that we really appreciate. Rob Bucksbaum, good morning. Best MHH team. Steve Kennedy, know that name as well. Albert Knoppers, Greg Smith. Man, we got all the folks coming in and saying hello. Miguel Santa Steven as well. So appreciate everybody.
Miguel has a question here real quick.
Yeah.
He says, I haven't watched in a while. No service. Well, sorry to hear that, Miguel. I think you must be neighbors with Nick. Is running back something you would address in the draft or free agency? Yes, and I think it will be. George Payton talked about this week, and I'm going to share this one as well. With some interesting news as well. He gave a health update on Javonte Williams, but even if he expects some changes to be made as well.
Well, we have a long ways to go. I mean, we ended up, I don't know how many backs played. I look at my depth chart, we have like 9 running backs. So we obviously, we had a lot of injuries there. Javonte, we feel will be healthy. We need to add. We're high on some of the guys that are up, some of the free agents. We do have Chase Edmonds coming back, but we do need to add at that position. I think he's on track. I don't want to put a date on it, but he's out there jogging. He's working his butt off. He's rehabbing, and Javonte. They anticipate he would be ready for the start of the season.
So, Miguel, that's some good news. I know we've talked about hedge your bets on Javonte Williams, but George Payton's up there kind of calling a shot. That's pretty progressive for, these uber conservative general managers who are like, we'll see, he's working hard. We like where he's at. He's progressing, blah, blah, blah. But no, we anticipate he'll be ready for the start of the season. That's big. He also says, yes, we anticipate on adding to the room. Yes, we have Chase Edmonds under contract. I don't think that one's going to last for right now, Nick, unless he's already anticipating a restructure he might be under contract, but he's not going to be playing on that $7 million cap hit that he's due this. So yes, Miguel, I expect there to be some significant changes in the running back room, and hopefully one of them is a healthy Javonte Williams.
I mean, how many weeks are we until the start of week 1 next year? It's just there's too much time between now and then for the Broncos to rely on Javonte Williams, in my opinion. You got to go in and I keep saying it. They say he's ahead of schedule. He's jogging right now. Okay, well, what happens if he has a setback in July and free agency and the draft have already come and gone? You can't rely on him next season. So even though they're saying that he is, they're expecting him to be back at the beginning of next season, that doesn't mean that much to me. Now, granted, I'm not in the room. I'm not getting the doctor's reports, but just with how much time there is between now and then, how often you see things step back, and then not only, being healthy enough to be out there, but the mental side of after suffering that injury and being able to go back out there as well. I think you have to be relatively aggressive in upgrading that running back position. Now, I'm not saying at all costs, but I would pretend like Williams isn't here or not available until the second half of the season. What can you do to bridge that gap?
Well, and even if he is, you still probably want to be doing that anyway.
Yes.
Sean Payton utilizes the running backs extensively in his offense. You need 2 top dogs, really. You need 2 of those guys. So if Javonte is one of them, great. Who's the other one? Melvin Ingram and Alvin Kamara did very similar but different jobs and shared the load with over 500 touches. When they were both doing well. So yeah, you're going to need more than one for sure. Everybody needs more than one anyway. But like he said, we had 9 last year, I think is what George Payton said. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Phil McLaughlin coming in. What do you guys think about Henley from Washington State and Pickens from SC? SC to me, South Carolina, USC.
I haven't watched much Henley from Washington State. I know that some people have him as a very highly graded linebacker in this class. Could be, top 50 pick. Pretty much my only exposure to Washington State this year was watching them versus Oregon. So you're going to have to ask me again later on that one. But I do appreciate the super fill, obviously. As far as Pickens, Scott, you should know Pickens because he was down there at the Senior Bowl. He's a 1 technique, 3 technique kind of guy. Zach Pickens, I think it's Zacch.
Yes.
From South Carolina. I think early 4th round is where you're expecting him. He's kind of that a Wazarike range talent kind of player. So that's where I'd expect him. The Broncos could use another investment on the interior defensive line, and Zach Pickens would be a solid pick there, I think, at the top of the 4th round. I've debated him a bit. He's more of your classic run stuffing guy with some good explosiveness and power at this point of attack, but not going to give you much pass rush. So if you're looking for him, that'd be great. If you're looking to replace a Draymond Jones, there's going to be other options, a different type of body. But I like Zach Pickens. He's somebody.
He's almost 6'4", 300 pounds, 82-inch wingspan. So yeah, I very active. I'll get some video up on him soon. Middle of the rounds guy, big body. I did like him. Wasn't blown away. Who's the guy that from UConn last year that I just loved? Travis Jones went to the Ravens naturally. I didn't see that guy this year at the Senior Bowl, but I saw some guys that I thought could contribute, and Zach was one of them. I do remember him. I'll get some video up on him soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to the grades a tad here, across the board, the Broncos did have some higher grades though. B+ weight room, A- strength and conditioning staff, C+ trainings room, B training staff, and then travel B+. Broncos, they had 100% respondents believed that the ownership group was going to make a difference for the Broncos. So the Walton-Penner Group, they say that things are not great right now, but with the Walton-Penner Group, every single player was asked about, is this group going to improve things? And every single one said, yes, the new group is going to help the facilities, training staff, the treatment of families, everything. It's going to be improvements. And this is something we talked about. You have limitations in cap and draft capital that are imposed by the league every year. Money is no object, though, in terms of improving facilities and staff around the players. So that's something that the players believe as well, which I think is a good thing.
I do too. We've said, no expense, that will be, money's not an object, and the investment that you can make around your team is unlimited, and it pays dividends. It's not, it might not be as 1-to-1 as a new quarterback, but you can touch all 53 players, all 70 players. When you go with the practice squad as well. Dreamy has come in here several times that I've been watching and asked this question. This time I'm on, I want to make sure we get this one. The Tennessee Titans released several players, including Robert Woods and Taylor Lewin last week. Would you look at any of those players, for the Denver Broncos? Robert Woods, yes, I absolutely would. Ultimate professional, really good player. I've known him since he was at Sarah High School in Gardenia in California, way back in the day. Love this guy, leadership, high character, good player. Luan has never played any right tackle, like as in capital N never, and he's been injured. That's a no for me. So I would steer clear of him. And he might be done. Is he coming back? You're looking for a right tackle. He's never played right tackle, and he's got an injury history, and he's probably going to be a little more expensive. I don't want wrong position, or at least can he transfer over, overpriced and unhealthy. Those are 3 strikes for me, Nick.
Yeah, that's no question on that. He's not somebody I'm looking to invest in. Broncos need to invest in the offensive line, but he's been good, but he's been a bit that he was been that great. I mean, if you guys recall, we've been talking about the Vance Joseph defenses. 2 years ago, it was Taylor Lewan getting absolutely beat like a drum in that Chandler Jones 5-sack game, week 1 of 2021. Robert Woods, maybe, especially if you move on from one of the wide receivers you already have in your room. But if you're bringing in a wide receiver, I would assume that you're probably looking at somebody that Peyton has familiarity with in a Cooks or potentially a Michael Thomas before Woods. I like Robert Woods a lot. He is an aging wide receiver. He's a really good blocker as a wide receiver. I think he probably goes to a McVay-Shanahan tree offense, though. Like, you could see him, the Vikings, he has familiarity with Kevin O'Connell. They need another wide receiver option out there, something like that. But
Robert Woods makes my short list of some of the best two-way players I ever got to scout. He played some corner and safety when he was playing in high school, and just kids gravitated toward him. I'm just a huge fan of Robert Woods, the person, and he had really good speed in all directions. It's like he wasn't the fastest. He was fast, really fast, but he wasn't the fastest guy I scouted. But he could run a route tree at a 90-degree angle, 45 this way, 45 this way for 90, and not lose a step. So he was a really good player, really good professional. And if you've got a spot open, let's say KJ Hamler moves on and you're looking for a fourth behind Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy, Robert Woods would slot into that spot very nicely for me, Nick.
Yeah, he would. Sorry. I was texting my internet buddy saying, hey, I need your help to come over here. He works for Costco and does phone lines and internet stuff for their huge corporate office. So out here in Seattle. So hopefully we'll get something figured out here. Can't be that hard. But we got Alan Forrester coming in saying morning from the UK. Love it across the pond there. I'll be in Denver at the end of this month yet to get over there when Broncos actually are playing. But we'll make the most of it while there. Any offseason recommendations, go Broncos, BFB. Skiing probably is way up there. If you are a skier out there visiting Denver, that's probably a way to go. Scott and I are neither in Denver. I've only ever been to Denver in early fall or summertime when I can go out to Rocky Mountain National Park or the San Juan Mountains or something like that. I know the Denver Zoo is absolutely incredible as well. If you want to head out there, they have a nice natural history museum, I believe, or museum of sciences. That's fun. But I'm sure that somebody in the chat could help you out a little bit more with recommendations for Denver in March. But unfortunately, not so much me.
Yeah, Denver. Yeah, when I went to Denver was to get up to the mountains, to go skiing. I love Denver. I love the mountains, but not necessarily the greatest for recommendations on this. Keith says, question, what scouting background does Scott Kennedy have? I was director of scouting for scout.com for about 10 years. I played sports. I played a little bit of high school football, but I was a soccer player. I always kind of said if I was a first round pick, I would have been Billy Bean. I just enjoyed the process, the math and the numbers and the stats behind it. While I was out covering recruiting and worked my way up through director of scouting, I ran combines and national events. I did my best to glom onto people and learn as much as I could. I felt like I had an instinct for, okay, I like this, and football is a little easier than other sports, flat out. It's a bigger, faster, stronger sport. Find the best athlete, you're usually going to find the best player. But then I'd try and learn. I'm like, okay, I'd stand there and watch a quarterback with my friend and say, okay, it's awkward to me. I don't like it. Why? Explain to me why this is awkward. And he'd teach me. So I'd learn. I spent 10, 15 years learning the craft. And you learn enough to know that there is no right or wrong in predicting. You will be, hopefully you're right more often than you're wrong. But $1 billion industry, they get half their first round draft picks wrong. So it's an imperfect science. I will try and let you know what I think, and then we'll see how it plays out. And I'm going to miss. And hopefully, I always say you might not like the answer you're going to get, but you're going to get a fast one and you're going to get an honest one. So that's me.
Most of the time. Yeah, Scott, actually, it's kind of funny. I was messing with Chat GTP the other day. Are you familiar with Chat GTP?
Is that the AI stuff that's like taking over the world?
Yes. I asked it, who is Scott Kennedy? And they gave a whole spiel about your background in recruiting and scouting players and an expert in the field and NFL Network. And it gave me like a short, 200-word essay on your
I need that because people
accolades.
ask me for my bio all the time. I'm like, I don't like writing about myself.
Well, it is pretty damn wild how it accumulates that. So
yeah, I did some work, some NFL draft work for 2 years with NFL Network because one, I knew all the guys way before they hit their radar. So I had the background on these guys. And two, I was 2 minutes from their offices in Culver City, California. And three, I was free. So, but with limited amount of airtime, I was one of the only people that they put on that didn't have a Super Bowl ring. So, I kind of got pushed out.
Well, we can ask Chat GTP to make you one or something. But no, for sure. You can find Scott on there. We were talking about it the other day, going down memory lane with Taylor May's draft coming out of USC a bit. But yeah, no, absolutely. They are. It's good to talk about that. Yeah, the hiking in Denver. I don't know so much about the winter hiking. I know out here right now in Washington, we have crazy high avalanche risk. So I will not be out there hitting those. I bet you there's some hot springs out there in Denver you could hit up. That would be pretty fun too. But we'll leave that to the chat. Dom says, hit up the dispensaries. Dom. Tisk, tisk. You got to be careful. Robert?
Sleep. I can do that at home. I want to travel. I want to be awake.
Robert America coming in saying, I hope the Broncos start making the moves necessary to clear cap space soon. It's a growing concern as every day passes. Free agency will be active this offseason. I think outside of the Titans making those moves, have any teams really started to clear cap space? I can't think of many cap casualties.
The Falcons moved Marcus Mariota. I think they had 5 days to the opening of free agency to do that. They went ahead and did it. So they did that like 2 weeks early. Other than that, not really. You've heard some of these guys say, well, Sean Payton said, we'll dive in when we get back from the combine. We've started, use the diving analogy. We haven't really done a deep dive on our roster yet. We've kind of just gone snorkeling. We haven't had the scuba tanks out there, which I think was kind of funny. So that will all happen soon. There's guys out there that you can just pencil. Graham Glasgow's not going to play on that contract. Jacob Martin likely will not play on that contract. Chase Edmonds likely will not play on that contract. And then people say, one of the questions I don't like. So go ahead and start asking me all the time. Are there any surprises? Well, if we knew them, they wouldn't be surprises. But Justin Simmons, Garrett Bowles, those are guys that have contracts that you can maneuver around and create some space. Those would be options to watch for. I'm not saying I don't expect that to happen, but in the surprise category, they would qualify.
Yeah, without a doubt. Jeremy calling me out saying, let's be honest, Nick asked who Nick Kendell was first. I did ask that before I asked about Scott, but I'll be honest. The first thing I asked was, where are golden trout in the Idaho sawtooths? I'm considering doing a backpacking trip in the sawtooths this summer, and I'd love to catch myself a golden trout, which are mostly known for some of the high alpine lakes in the Sierra Nevada. But I found a few, and ChatGTP knew how. I don't understand how it works, but it knows things. Yeah, it's a pretty wild service. Yeah, Colin said Nick Kendell is a chatbot created at the University of Iowa. Augustana University first, then University of Iowa. And you guys maybe have heard of Augustana University before. Scott, maybe some of the older football heads in here. Football home to former NFL MVP Ken Anderson. Played at the very small
Cincinnati
school
Bengals.
Yeah, very small school at on the river of the Mississippi on the Illinois side. So
He was
then
he
came
was real old because like I barely remember him. He was old when I was young, so that's how long ago that was. That was 80s. He was a pretty good
yes,
quarterback if I remember correctly. One of the
nice
things
guy
I wanted
as
to I
well.
wanted to hit Twitch on here. I wanted to hit Savage Boy talking right tackle. Mike McClinchy, Jawan Taylor, Caleb McGarry, will at least one of them be a good option? I can speak most educated on Caleb McGarry, right tackle, Atlanta Falcons. He's a bully, which is what you need. The Falcons have about 80 million in cap space, and they love him. So worst comes to worst, I think they would franchise tag him. But he is a perfect fit, round peg, round hole for what they do. He had his best season in his second season, his only good season, but in his second year under Arthur Smith, and they've got the money to keep him. I think he's going to be in the 15 million range, and that's probably more than Denver wants to spend. So I don't think Caleb McGarry is going to be a viable option for the Denver Broncos.
If he hits the market, all bets are off, right? We'll see what happens there, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know that recently PFF, while I pull it up, hopefully it doesn't crash my internet. They did an article talking about matching free agency offensive tackles to teams, and they linked the Broncos to Jawan Taylor, will be a fifth-year player from the University of Florida, just going to be 25 years old this year, and he had a 73.6 pass blocking grade over 2 pass sets over the past 2 seasons, which ranks 8th among tackles. Jawan Taylor fell to the beginning of the second round when he came out. A lot of people thought he was a mid-first round talent, but he fell to the second because he tore his meniscus in 2017, and I guess that was flagged some in the 2019 draft, 2020 draft. But he's 6'5", 315 pounds, moves pretty darn well. I think he's strong enough also to the point of attack. You can do gap scheme stuff with him, and 35.5-inch arm length, if I recall correctly. It's plus 35, so he's prototype built, good mover. I'd love to have Jawan Taylor in here if he passes your medicals and everything like that. But I think he's going to get paid as well. And why would somebody like that, so talented, hit the market if the Jags are rebuilding and could use offensive line? The Jags they paid Cam Robinson big money 2 off seasons ago. He's going to be back. And they drafted Walker Little 2 years ago, and he came in for Cam Robinson and looked really good this last season. And if you guys, Scott maybe recalls this as well because he's more on the recruiting side, but Walker Little was a super highly rated recruit that ended up going to Stanford and then got injured and missed some time at Stanford. But he was considered a super recruit level player, and looks like he's actually starting to hit some of that ability. So they could let Jawan Taylor walk in. If he hits the market, I'd be happy to have it. Mike McGlinchey has injury concerns as well. I think he's probably going to get paid big time, but we'll see. And hopefully my long rant there didn't get broken up by the internet there, Scott.
No, nice and smooth. That was one of the reasons I was grinning. The other one I was grinning here. Appreciate the question, Savage Boy. It was good teamwork, Nick, on that one. Keith coming in says Dalton Reisner put out an 8-minute video of highlights from last year. I was surprised at the higher level of production than I expected as Reisner come back. Reisner played 1,000 snaps last year. If I had 2 plays a game for 30, I get it for 17 games. I don't even play all 17. And I came up with 35, 10 seconds of play. That's 6 minutes of 2 good plays a game. They say tape doesn't lie. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Tape lies. The tape doesn't lie thing is not true. It lies. You need to see the bad lights too. You need to see the other. If that's 40 plays, what about the other 950? The other 950 told me that Dalton Reisner was a liability on the offensive line last year. I got into the chat a little bit last night, Nick, talking about, what would I offer? I'd probably offer Dalton about $2.5 million and that got chuckles, from Luke. I was like, I'm serious. That actually puts you at 34th in the NFL at the guard spot. That is mid-tier starter money is $2.5 million. He didn't play mid-tier starter level. He played bottom 20% starter level. I saw it by my eyes. By PFF rankings, he's in the 50s. So $2.5 million is what I would offer him. He probably won't take it. He might have a good enough reputation that someone else will offer him a lot more. But I would offer him mid-level starter money with the chance to compete first to keep his spot. And if he doesn't like it, thanks and good luck. And we welcome you back because you're an awesome part of the community.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out for him. I think he's going to get an okay contract just because the teams are always looking for the offensive line, and he's been serviceable and available, which is a big part of it as well. For him, hasn't missed much of any time, so that is a plus for a lot of teams looking to spend their money. Are you going to actually be able to see the field? But we'll see. We'll see how the market shakes out for him. There are some guard options for the Broncos and some center options as well. I saw a question earlier asking about who could the Broncos consider at center. And right now, I'm looking at the list. Hopefully, some more players become available at the center position for the Broncos. But right now, there's a list, I would say, of about 3 people that you want to keep your eyes on. Garrett Bradbury, coming out of the University of or North Carolina State University, played for the Vikings, former first-round pick. A little bit small, can get sometimes bullied at the point of attack, but an incredible athlete for the center position. If you're looking to run outside zone with those reach blocks from the center, he's probably one of the better options in the league, top 5 in that regard in the league. Then you have a couple other guys. Bradley Bozeman, going to be 28 years old. Spot Rack has him as a $12 million per year valuation. We'll see if that comes to play. But I was impressed with Bozeman this last year at Alabama or at Carolina. Comes out of Alabama, former 6th-round pick. Not a good athlete, but very smart and just gets the job done out there. The other center to keep an eye on is Ethan Pokasic. Came out of LSU, guard center combination, 2nd-round pick. Started his career, played center for Russell Wilson in Seattle, and then played for the Browns this last year. He looked really good for the Browns. My biggest concern with him is that the Browns probably have the best duo of guards in the entire NFL in Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller. So the job for the centers is probably decently easy, all things considered. But those are the 3 names right now that I have my eye on. I know Jason Kelsey and Rodney Hudson are also available, but given their age, I'm not sure. I think Jason Kelsey would rather retire than leave the Eagles at this point, probably. And Hudson's missed more games than he's played the last 3 years.
So one of the interesting things that Spot Rack has put together is a value proposition as well. They take the money, the percentage of snaps, and where they think they were ranking. And for free agent centers, the number 1 value center available is Ethan Posick. And he was making 1.2 last year. Jason Kelsey was the next one. Jake Brendel for San Francisco, Garrett Bradbury, Minnesota, and Sam Mustipher were top 10 centers scheduled to be free agents that all made. Those were the highest value level on Spot Rack. That's a nice tool I had. I pitched basically Spot Rack to several different companies I worked for in the mid 2000s, and Spot Rack has built it. Now I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, and news on the center as well for the Broncos. Somebody that they maybe would have considered in Austin Blythe, who played some guard and center for the Rams and started a lot of games out there for the Rams the last few seasons, was going to be a free agent, has retired. So he's somebody that, you could have second wave free agency, missed the big contract guys. Well, you know what you're getting there from him. He's been a smart player in the league for a number of years now, a solid player. He is retiring from the league. So that's a little bit of a bummer for the Broncos, just because the market gets a little bit less options, but a name that would have been an option, no more. Austin Blythe, University of Iowa.
Denver Luke comes in and asks the question, should the Broncos consider getting Marcus Mariota as our backup? I would consider it. I would absolutely consider it. There's going to be some talk about, didn't this guy quit on his team? Didn't he quit last year? Well, depending on the narrative, yes. What actually happened was when he was basically, and you can fault him for this, he was hiding a knee injury because he was on the cusp of losing his starting job. And when he lost his starting job, he says, okay, I'm going to go see my wife and my newborn baby, and then I'm going to have knee surgery. And Arthur Smith was like, wait, what? Knee surgery? We didn't know anything about a knee injury. How come you didn't let us know about this before? So he had as soon as he was benched, he took off to go see his newborn child and had season-ending knee injury. Now, the one thing that bothers me, Nick, and I said this at the time, he didn't come back. He didn't come back to the team. The next time he was in the building was to clean out his locker at clean out the locker day at the end of the season. That bothered me a little bit, but I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. As I said at the time, he's always been a very good professional. He was making 12 to 14 as with decent starter money for the Falcons. he'd be a 5 to 6. I think you could probably get him at, and I think he would be a solid backup QB2 for $5-6 million.
Yeah.
The other one that we're talking about here is, Jeremy says I'd rather have Jacoby Brissett. I think Jacoby Brissett has played his way into starters' money. I think he's probably going to end up getting about 3x what Marcus Mariota would get. If Marcus Mariota gets 5, I think Jacoby Brissett could get 15 and come in to try and be somebody's starter next year.
The quarterback market is so weird though, because like it's a rich versus poor kind of thing. I mean, they're not really poor, but there's not really a mid-tier quarterback market.
Right.
So I will be interested to see how that plays out for him. I think the ability to start though and make more money later on is going to be big for him. Seems like the team that he's been connected with the most is the Arizona Cardinals, given he has some familiarity there with their new, I believe, offensive coordinator that was brought in from the time with the Colts, or maybe there's somebody that he has connection with there in the Arizona Cardinals. But we'll see. Jacoby Brissett was really good this last season for the Cleveland Browns when they were waiting for Deshaun Watson's suspension to run out, and he's probably going to get a decent market, but there's going to be people available. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, obviously not great names, but I think Sam Darnold has some connection to Davis Webb, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've crossed paths in their NFL careers, so that's one that you could see happen there for the Broncos. And the Broncos, we've heard Mike Kliss talk about it. We've talked about it a lot on here. They're going to make some sort of expenditure at the backup quarterback spot to protect themselves in case things get off the rails with Russell Wilson this season, to protect themselves. And it's the right move. It's callous, it's cold, but that's the business, right? Stunk last year. You got to protect yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's callous and cold, but he's going to get $150 million out of it one way or another. So it ain't that callous and cold.
Yeah,
true. I feel okay for him.
That's true. I just want people coming at us. It's like, oh, you guys hate him. Like, no, it's just the reality. He was bad last year, and they're going to put themselves in a position to protect themselves, as they should.
Yeah, we've said it a zillion times. If you're watching for the first time, this will be the first time you've heard it. But the lot of big contracts for the Denver Broncos are maneuverable after the 2023 season. Mm-hmm. So as the coaching search was going on, why would you come when you're stuck with these contracts? Blah, blah, blah. It's because this is a 10-year deal, and you could start over in 2024 with Sean Payton rebuilding your team. That's an interesting project if you are a talented, egotistical coach like Sean Payton is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good call. We had an interesting question, and I think we do have to talk about it at least a little bit from, where was it? Somebody asked us about Jalen Carter. For the Broncos, potentially him falling. I don't think Jalen Carter is going to fall that much where it's going to be a conversation for the Broncos, but we'll see how this process plays out. Obviously, implications that he had a arrest warrant out yesterday, involved in that street drag racing incident that had a staffer and a teammate at Georgia pass away from it. I mean, just absolute tragedy. He apparently lied to the cops about it. More information is going to come out. I'm not an expert on the topic, so you guys can go out there and find your reputable news sources and get all the details there. But Jalen Carter's not going to fall, in my opinion, that far with this. He'd say he's going to be exonerated.
Here's what happened, Nick. Those were misdemeanor charges. Mm-hmm. He'll pay a fine. It was racing and reckless driving. Considering that you could have gotten hit with a manslaughter charge on something like that, he got charged very lightly. That's not going to affect his draft stock. It's just not. Unless you start doing a deep dive, and Todd McShay was right the whole time, and this guy's been in bars starting fights, and doing all this stuff and has a problem. But when Todd McShay came out and said he's got character concerns, none of that came out. And I went to a big SEC school. Nick went to a big football school. You knew the guys on the football team that were out causing problems. If you're out, it gets around. And, none of that happened with Jalen Carter. If this was a one-off, then he'll be fine. We can't say the same thing for his passengers. So definitely a tragedy. It was a Jeep Trackhawk. If you know anything about a Jeep Trackhawk and anything racing a Ford Expedition, well, there's about a 450 horsepower difference between those two. And the Jeep Trackhawk is a 700 horsepower lowered SUV, Jeep Cherokee, and bad things happened.
Yeah, more details will come out, but Alabama should green with the question here on that. I think it could impact his draft stock in a sense where like maybe he's not the no doubt number one player on team's board, and instead of
Mhm.
going top 3, he goes top 10.
I still think he goes, the Colts make a trade. If I was predicting now, the Colts make a trade with the Bears. The Bears at 4 would still probably take him at 4.
I agree with you on this. I do think that it opens up the possibility more for the Bears to listen to trade offers where they fall out of the range of Will Anderson and Jalen Carter for a bigger draft haul. So I think it
Yeah.
opens the door for the Raiders, for the Panthers, for teams like that, where the Bears would be like, okay, well,
Mhm.
Jalen Carter, we'd like him, but this is a concern. Maybe we'd
I
rather
agree.
have the extra first round picks, the extra second this year, and move back to 7 or 9 versus having to stay in the top 4.
No, but we're
So
talking, does he fall out of how far does he fall in the top 10, not 3rd round?
no,
If he falls to the 3rd round, he's not getting drafted.
yeah.
That means he's out. Something else has happened, and he's Henry Ruggs, and he's out.
Or the
Who's
La'el
in is
Collins.
Deanna Henry is in. Coming in hot pink, fuchsia. Says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Jacoby Brissett looks good to me. I think invest the money in him for starter for future needs. You guys rock. Thank you, Deanna. You rock. Appreciate you coming in and supporting the show the way you do. I just think, for me, he's going to get a better deal to come in and be a starter. So, it takes 2 to tango, and Jacoby Brissett will say, I can get more money, and I've got an easier path to the number 1 somewhere else. So I just have a hard time picturing that he would accept a deal from the Denver Broncos with a bona fide number 1 when he still envisions himself as being a starter because of the way he played last year. And I think he's earned that shot, Nick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. He played great last season. Also, he is absolutely beloved wherever he's gone in his locker room. I mean, you could talk about the absolute toxic, weird situation in Cleveland last season, and he really rallied that team and was a huge leader for them. So he'd be great on this team. I think he's going to get a better opportunity than coming in and being the no doubt backup that might get a shot if Russell Wilson struggles. That's the
Right.
situation. That's the pitch here in Denver. And I think he can probably have a better opportunity platform than that this offseason.
That's the level Marcus Mariota has played himself into.
Yep.
So Brissett has played himself into, hey, we could probably get this guy as a starter. Baker Mayfield could be into that. Okay, he isn't cutting it as a starter. Maybe we get him as a backup. He could be in that range right now too. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is going to get a shot to be a number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Appreciate the comment.
Yeah, big time, Deanna. That's a big super chat coming in. $50 closing out the week really strong. I didn't see Ethan in here, so you might actually be our closer today, but we'll see if anybody else comes in with the big stars and support. Final thing I want to talk about here, circling back around to the Broncos grades here, getting a really low grade in the food department, the nutrition. And I saw Mike Kliss tweet out this morning that he was pretty damn surprised about that. Kliss says, the Broncos getting a D, big surprise. Heard players rave about the cafeteria food, especially those coming from the team, especially those who come from other teams. Broncos fly in lobsters from Maine, ahi from Hawaii, 3 squares a day, friendly cooks, surprised. And
That's too fancy.
Maybe.
And I don't want lobster. I don't want my food looking at me. Give me a hamburger and some spaghetti, man.
And reading the article from NFLPA, I think it has more to the Broncos have options, but they don't have individualized nutrition plans. That was mentioned in the article. Also, apparently the Broncos were one of only 2 teams that didn't offer their players regiment specified vitamins for their players' nutrition. So maybe it has to do with that. Maybe the players felt like it wasn't being crafted, cultivated enough to the individual where they have, good options as far as, the regular dining and whatnot, but not the best as far as fuel for performance.
It was peanut butter and cereal yesterday. Those were the 2 meals yesterday for me. It wasn't a banner day in the old Kennedy household for this guy. No, I would absolutely attack a lasagna bar type of thing. The pasta. I'd go after the big pastas and cheeses for sure.
God, love cheeses. Talking about ChatGPT, the other thing I was asking about it the other day was the best way to cook backcountry trout when you don't have fire and you can't carry much oil. And so it's got me thinking maybe I need to figure out how to poach some trout in the backcountry with some boiling water in a stove. But we'll see how that works out. I'm getting excited. Only 111 days until summertime. Who's counting though? But Scott, any other thoughts? I mean, we're at 45 minutes. It's a slower time. A little bit of the we're having the defensive line take off today, I believe. It's just some rumors here. Apparently, from interviews, Tyree Wilson and Michael Mayer have been incredible so far, and come back with incredible reports from their interviews. So, two guys that maybe you see go higher. Is this crazy to say that maybe Tyree Wilson is somebody who could be the first pick overall? We saw Daniel Jeremiah mention him being drafted over Will Anderson in his recent mock draft. Now you have these reports and the Jalen Carter things. I mean, are we sleeping on Wilson there?
I think 3 is the highest for him. Talking about where Daniel Jeremiah is and having him go against the big shock for me still would be Wilson going over Anderson. And how big a shock will that end up being? We may find out this week. I really want to watch Lucas Van Ness. He could end up being the talk of he could Travon Walker himself this week. People talked about the Travon Walker production. How come he didn't do more in college? Well, he wasn't asked to do more. And there's a little bit of reasoning behind that for Lucas Van Ness too, but he could go out there and put on a combine show that says this guy's got to go top 10. So we'll see on that. I'm interested in Tyree Wilson again. Had him stretch out yesterday. He's got like an 86-inch wingspan or something ridiculous. But Jalen Carter, the Colts at number 4 need someone else to take his spot, because if Jalen Carter is not in the top 5, that number 4 pick becomes less valuable, because it was, if you want to move up to number 1, you're thinking, okay, the Bears can move to 4 and still get Jalen Carter or Will Anderson before the big drop off. So you need an elite prospect to step into that spot if Jalen Carter is then off the board. So we will see. We will see.
Colin, boiled fish? No. Yeah, that doesn't sound great. I'm looking to poach them. They mentioned dropping rocks in your boiling water so that we can cook. It steams it, I guess, is what essentially happens there. I don't know. Trying to figure it out. I'm also going to have to freeze dry some vegetables out there on the trail as well. But carrying enough food for a 7-day backpacking trip, I would. But it'll be. And Scott, looks like my internet's dipping a little bit. Any final thoughts before we start to wrap on up here? A little bit shorter show today, but it's the combine, and we're going to get a lot of fun stuff this weekend.
No, hoping we be able to find all of the results in one spot quickly. That's my ask. I don't want to have to go to every single page and find out who's doing what and start compiling them one at a time.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll be able to find something for you. There's always somebody out there that produces pretty good stuff. And also, shout out to Ken Lee Platt out there on Twitter. He is Math Bomb. If you're looking for him, he does a great job of compiling all of the combine data, and he puts it into a score that I think is really important here. So a guy who is 6'5", 320 pounds that runs a 4.6 40 is much more impressive than a guy who is 6'2", 275 pounds that runs a 4.5 40.
I don't need the score. The student sports try to do that with a Spark score, and it was a big marketing ploy.
Yeah, I remember.
They're then selling their Spark equipment and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, dude, just look at the height, look at the weight, and then just sort categories. I'm good. Guy's running a 3.8 short shuttle. I know he can return punts and play cornerback. But anyway, yeah, the RAS is kind of interesting. I do like those stuff, but we got some people trying to close us out here, and I want to say thank you to all of them as they come in. Phil McLaughlin coming in with some stars. Said, you guys heard anything about a new practice facility? To me, that's long term, Nick. I know that they've talked about closing on some land around the airport and that type of thing. So I don't know. Nick, how about you?
It's going to happen here pretty soon. I think the Broncos will bring in, they'll buy some land, they'll figure it out, and they'll get something going here. But that's down the road. They might even build a Broncos village, Bronco land, as Kliss likes to joke about. But it's coming. There's going to be some huge, in the next decade, there are going to be huge changes.
The Atlanta Braves have done that very well. They tried it, 30 years ago downtown, and it didn't work. But now they've built the Battery just north of the city, and it's booming. It's, even when the Braves aren't in town. So, but it also helps when you got 81 home games instead of 8. So, Bronco land type of thing could work if it's done correctly. And then Deanna Henry coming in, she says, I think the renovations are looking at the food update and improving it. Everything, the strength conditioning facilities, the rehab facilities, nutrition, food, fan experience. The richest owners in football want to make this the premier franchise in the NFL. And to do that, they need buy-in from the players and they need buy-in from the fans. They want you to think this is everything I could ever hope for from my team. Thank you. I love it. And that's what we say to you every day, Deanna, is thank you. We love it. Appreciate you coming in here.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that. We also got, I think Michael came in big, Scott. Came in, said, great show today, Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast.
Michael did come in. I was looking at, because Phil came in the wrong chat today, so I'm having to bounce back and forth. So I didn't see the big kaboom from Michael because I was on the wrong tab. And Michael came in with 10,000 stars. 10,000 stars today. And Michael says, great show today. Hair's blown back. My forehead's nice and shiny. I'd take my hat off if I had one to you, Michael. We love you, dude. Thank you so much. He's not quite closing us out saying great show today because Quentin has also come in late. Well, we tell you we're going to leave and all of a sudden it starts rolling in here, guys. Thank y'all so much. Because Quentin's coming in also saying good morning, everyone. And I think this would be a good time to say aloha because aloha can mean hello and goodbye. Deanna, Quentin, Michael, Phil, Gary came in. Was it Rob that came in early? Got us started. It was Philip Hogginson that came in early as well. Love y'all. I hope everybody has a terrific weekend. This is our last show of the week, and you make us feel good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, with these super chats, I'm going to have to buy my friend a beer to come out and drill me a direct line Ethernet cable or something in the ceiling here. But we appreciate you guys coming in. Have a great weekend. Stay warm and dry. It's going to be colder than heck out here in the Pacific Northwest. And enjoy the Combine for what it is. Scott and I have a lot of information to go over this week, some performances. Don't get too sucked into the 40-yard dash. Look for those 10-yard splits. Look for the jumps. The vertical and the horizontal show explosiveness. And also you have the one of my favorite things they've implemented over the last few seasons is the hoop drill for the edge rushers, showing that flexibility and that bend, how they can, go around that arc. That's a great drill to watch if you're looking for
running
rushers.
Parallel to the ground is awfully impressive. And you can see how they can get around the edge. The 40 is fun and everybody kind of understands what that means, but you find your athletes with the other things. You can train up a 40. You can take a 4.8 kid and make them a 4.5 kid just through the technique and everything. He's not really any faster. In racing, in the quarter mile times, they call it a trap speed. Say, okay, you ran a 10.5 quarter mile, but what was your trap speed? Your trap speed was 125 miles an hour versus 120 miles an hour. So you're actually faster at a quarter mile. Sometimes the 40 is about your first step and technique. It is hard to fake the shuttle and the L cone and the jumping. It's hard to technique those. There is technique involved, but you've got to have that God-given ability in order to do those. So keep an eye on those. Love the vertical, love the L cone, love the shuttles.
I have heard teams and connections in the league complain about how the coaching and the technique has gotten so good in the 3-cone that it's not like over the past 5 years we have the twitchiest agile athletes of all time. It's that they figured out the best way possible to train those, and that you can't really train those as much for the vertical and the long jump. But the 3-cone itself is, like, if you're comparing it to historical data, not great anymore.
Yeah, it is for historical, but the thing is, I always compare within a given event because those are the only things that change. Like if I'm running outside, I could have wind, I could have a different surface. So I always do it within, as Keith says, the 40-yard dash number is something that most people understand. Those other drills don't have context. You compare them to each other. It's hard to say, okay, well, Darrell Green ran this, one of the fastest players, best athletes that ever played in the NFL, but it was 30 years ago. And one more tidbit. Speaking of one of the guys that has earned a great living, my friend Chip Smith trains He's trained several thousand NFL Combine invitees. Jalen Virgil was in the chat earlier today. I saw his name come up. He's actually here, 20 minutes from my house, working over in Norcross with Chip Smith, and he was on Instagram today. So he's Jalen Virgil, wide receiver, speedy guy, working out here in Atlanta right now.
Wow, that's awesome. Say hello. I know that I don't remember who it was in the chat that thought Jalen Virgil was the second coming. But yeah, that's fun. Hopefully he'll step up this year. We could definitely use some young talent at the wide receiver position. But guys, that's gonna have to do it for us. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scott Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you guys are following us at BFB_pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join our Facebook communities at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Click that bell so that way you know when we go live. Scott and I are pretty good, within like 5 minutes or so of getting on here. But, sometimes things happen. Traffic, internet, blah, blah, blah. So click that bell so that way you know when we go live. We appreciate you guys. You have a great weekend. Enjoy all the Combine events. And, yeah, nothing else really to say. Scott, have any plans? Anything fun?
Little baseball, little Combine stuff. I want to try and I'm going to clean up my yard a little bit too. I want to try this one because Quentin came in with a super. I've read this a couple times and maybe I'm just skimming. If I read it out loud, maybe I'll understand what he's asking. How y'all think about the first round pick tackle from the Eagles? He hasn't played. Train him up, maybe. I'm not sure what he's asking here, Nick.
He's asking about the first round pick that the Eagles took a few years ago from Washington State. The left tackle. I can't remember his name right now. He's got beat out by Jordan Mailata. Mm-hmm. If you want to trade like a 6th round pick for him or something, or a 5th round pick, if you're interested, that's fine. My issue with him is that he's extremely passive. It's always been an issue with him. He has issues with his grip strength and displacing people. And if you want to become Andre Dillard is the name. Thank you, Achy Dragon. I knew it would come to me. You guys got it. But Andre Dillard, yeah. If you Broncos want to give a really low pick to add to the room, that'd be okay. You're not going to get a long leash of contract control with him. But I think maybe only 1 year of control left. But yeah, no, I mean, you need talent, and he's somebody who has the body type and fluidity to do it. And he got beat out by Jordan Mailata, who's a really good player. So that's not as much Andre Dillard not getting it worked out. That being said, how good the Eagles have been at training offensive line and they haven't been able to maximize Dillard is a concern.
Right. Good shout on that one. Thank you, Quentin. Appreciate you coming in. So that was the one. Just want to make sure I hit that last question before we get out of here.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a great one. Scott, it seems like you're feeling better, so that's great. You guys have a great weekend. Stay warm, continue to choose kindness and compassion, and as always, go Broncos.